Moody music and spicy goulash, those are the flavours of today's Grand Prix. Hello, I'm John Watson and welcome to the Hungaroring on a glorious afternoon for the 12th Hungarian Grand Prix, round 11 of the FIA Formula One World Championship. Hungary, Budapest, Hungaroring. Budapest itself in the north of Hungary, Hungaroring, it's just 12 miles northeast of the capital of Buda and Pest, two cities, and they are split by the river Danube. Jonathan Green's been working overtime here this weekend, so Jonathan, let us hear what you're going to tell us about the updates.
Well, John, the latest from the Hungaroring is it looks as though it's going to be another classic battle between Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve, and all weekend long, Michael seems to have had an advantage. Perhaps it's the new chassis they've got. It's much lighter, some 22 pounds, and that's put him on pole position. Another factor could be Damon Hill, of course. We've got three of the top rivals of the last few years all together on the front two rows. Damon Hill has put a brilliant time in qualifying. And, of course, in terms of the Hungaroring, well, it's his favourite circuit. He won his first race here in 1993 and has never not been on the podium since. So I think we're in for a classic battle. Watch out for that first corner, because I think everybody will be wanting to get into the lead as soon as they possibly can, because it's very hard to overtake here at the Hungaroring, and also could all be on pit stop strategies and tyres.
Thanks, Jonathan. But the big news is Michael Schumacher in this morning's warm-up went off and damaged that brand new F310B. That car will not be used. He'll be in the spare car. Lots of things have been going on here this weekend. Derek Bell once again in the booth with me. Good afternoon, Derek. And what are those buzzes that we've been hearing about all day?
Well, Michael did crash the new car this morning, John, and it was 22 pounds lighter, which enabled, of course, the engineers to move the weight around to improve the handling. It also had a 1.5 gallon larger fuel tank. Eddie Irvine, well, he signed for Ferrari for his third year, at a fee somewhat less than he had hoped for. Ralf Schumacher, well, he's to honour the second year of his contract at Jordan. Fisichella, he's going to go to Benetton, unless, of course, Eddie Jordan can do another one of his financial juggling acts to retain him. And Damon Hill did not do a deal at Sauber last week. Perhaps he hopes something better will come along. Well, Damon's been looking for a competitive car for next year. Interest has been shown by several teams. We found out that last week he did visit the Sauber factory, but they just simply didn't come to terms, and it wasn't money. He's at a point now, and he's just got to make some decisions. I think he could well go to McLaren to join his former Williams technical director, Adrian Newey, but it's not down to them, it's down to McLaren and Mercedes. He's a great asset to a team, and he's had some good runs lately. I just hope he doesn't lose out. If he'd gone to join Sauber, his teammate would have been Johnny Herbert, and here are Johnny's views.
Damon had some talks with Peter Sauber that didn't work out. Would that have been a relief to you, or something you would have welcomed to have Damon as your teammate?
No, I would have welcomed it. I think it would have been very good for the team. It would have been good to have an ex-world champion alongside me and someone I could actually gauge myself against in a team that is very, very fair. So I think it would have been very good for me, but it's disappointed in some ways that it never came off. But, you need to make a decision, and they couldn't wait.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
For the fans, that is. Ambient temperature 75 degrees, track temperature 87. For the teams and the tyres, that might be very crucial. 8 miles per hour wind from the east, 42% humidity, and that's dropping rapidly, and about a 20% chance of rain. Well, not everything at Grand Prix racing is serious. There are some relaxing moments. Jonathan Green went with the Sauber team for a little bit of relax.
4-6 miles round, a very twisty track, as you can see. In fact, it's very often likened to a Monaco without the buildings and the harbour. Nonetheless, it's very, very twisty. They have to get the power down perfectly out of the corners. They have to be very, very neat and tidy as they sweep through the corners. As you can see, it's a car that actually induces an understeer. And of course, this can destroy the tyres, and of course, it means that you have to check your tyres, change your tyres much sooner than you normally would. As they sweep down through this section here, of course, it's a very high downforce circuit. Very, very important to get the balance absolutely right. It's a long race, a lot of laps, and all he's doing is going round the corners. We're now riding with Michael Schumacher on his fastest lap yesterday as he actually sweeps down through some of this midsection part of the circuit. Just watch how neat, how immaculate it is he goes through here, uses every inch of the road. Then we feed our way into the last section just before you come up to the start-finish line. Vital to get to this corner, right out to the outside. Berger went off here yesterday, into the final turn as we come onto the main straight. Very, very fast as they come out here, up to 160 miles an hour as they go down the straight. Very difficult for overtaking, a lot of understeer, and of course they have to have the balance right. Now let's go down to Jos Verstappen, who of course has got set up for this week's Grand Prix.
The circuit here in Hungary, it's quite hard for the car. Obviously, the car will have a lot of understeer because the corners are down the hill, and it's quite long corners, so you have to make the setup work. And what you really do is take some very soft spring in the front, a bit harder in the rear, and lift the rears a bit up, so the front are working quite well. I think that's the main problem, and as well, the tires are very hard on the circuit because they are very soft and there are a lot of corners, so you have to really make the tires work on the car, play with the tire pressure so the tire is still moving into a corner. And as well, what is very important, make them last for long. I mean, when you have a problem when the car goes straight in the corner, so the setup is not right, so what you have to do is go softer on the front spring or go a bit harder on the rear spring. And what you can see, those extra wings in the side, they obviously produce more downforce. I will say push the car more to the ground in the high-speed corner. So when you drive on a straight, it pushes the car down, down, down. So you have more grip, and that's especially in the high-speed corners.
In qualifying, 17th career pole, but spoiled his copybook this morning by going off and damaging that car. He'll be in the spare for the race. Jacques Villeneuve has had to work very hard all weekend to get onto the front row of the grid. He did it, but just under 2/10 away from the championship leader. Great performance from Damon Hill. He gave Yamaha their best qualifying position ever in 3rd place on row 2, joined by Mika Häkkinen on the 2nd row once again. Could he win this afternoon's Grand Prix? Row 3, Eddie Irvine backs up Michael Schumacher, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the leading Goodyear runner on the prime of the hard Goodyear tire. Watch him at the start. He's been in trouble in the last 2 Grand Prix. Row 4, Gerhard Berger and David Coulthard. Row 5, Jean Alesi and Johnny Herbert in the top 10 once again. Rubens Barrichello and Jarno Trulli, 2 Bridgestone runners there on the optional soft Bridgestone tire, and possibly only 2 stops for the Bridgestone runners today. Giancarlo Fisichella and Ralf Schumacher in the Jordans really disappointing. They're on the hard Goodyear tire, and they may even try a one-stop strategy. Unbelievable, but what have they got to lose? Row 8 is Morbidelli on his return, and Shinji Nakano, first time at the Hungaroring. Jan Magnussen and Jos Verstappen round out row 9. And on 10 it's Pedro Diniz in the 2nd, Arrows Yamaha, and Ukio Katayama in the Minardi Hard. And final row 11, Mika Salo, who was disappointed. Tarso Marquez just trying to hang in. Well, there is the grid. Michael Schumacher in the red Ferrari on the right of your screen. And Jacques Villeneuve as they now set off on this parade lap. So an awful lot this afternoon, 77 laps. We're anticipating that the leading front 3 rows, with the exception of Damon Hill and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, in other words 4 cars, will opt for a 3-stop strategy. Factors that will affect that, of course, are the nature of the racetrack itself. The last 3 Grand Prix here have been won on 3-stop strategies. Goodyear, of course, have won all the 11 previous Grand Prix, but this race this year with Bridgestone, we don't know. Damon Hill really shocked the paddock with that fine 3rd place. As far as the Bridgestone runners are concerned, we anticipate that they're going to do 2 stops. In fact, Pedro Diniz this morning did a long run to give the team, and therefore teammate Damon Hill, that information that they feel is vital for a 2-stop strategy. As I said, Jordan, who are way back in the 7th row of the grid, may even try and do it on a 1-stop. They're that far back, not much to lose. Derek, we're halfway around this long lap here at the Hungaroring. Have a look at these great shots.
Yes, they really are some great shots. Gives you a great idea just how twisty this circuit really is. It's very difficult to overtake. That is the most critical thing here. It's so difficult to overtake. Of course, there's a lot of change of direction. That change of direction means a lot of fatigue for the drivers, makes it very wearing on the drivers. Let's not forget that 2 drivers went off yesterday at very high speed, and of course Michael Schumacher went off at the same place as Villeneuve. That sort of roughly turns 10 and 11. Went off at high speeds. Of course, Bridgestone, for some reason, we noticed this from Damon's sector times yesterday. In fact, as Damon came through that last section, he was actually as quick as Michael Schumacher. So it shows that the Bridgestone tires weren't wearing as hard, or as badly, should I say, as the Goodyears in that section. So it'll be interesting to see just how these Bridgestone Cup tires do work in this race. It's a long race. As you say, they're going to have 3 stops. That means that quite a bit of overtaking, a lot of intrigue, and it's really down to the pits.
Michael Schumacher in that spare F310 Ferrari, not the B, not the lightweight car, on board with Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve won this Grand Prix last year. He started in 3rd place. Damon Hill, in fact, was alongside Michael Schumacher throws off threw off of this visor. That's very, very early indeed. At the start of the Grand Prix, keep an eye out for Eddie Irvine and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. They've been tangling from time to time, but I think you have to watch Mika Hakkinen. There's on the second row, that second car on the left of screen. That is the Flying Finn, but Michael Schumacher's starts in the last few Grand Prix have also been outstanding. And remember, on a track that is hard to overtake on, first in that first corner is enormous. So, as we see the light sequence, turn up the volume and listen to the start. Michael Schumacher gets a great start, but Damon Hill dives through to take second place. Eddie Irvine, even better, goes down the inside of Damon Hill. Irvine shuts the door, and what a poor start from Villeneuve. We watched the cars forward of Magnussen, I think, or Barrichello, one of the two Stuart Fords, I think, had contact. Damon Hill still second, and it was Jan Magnussen out of this Grand Prix, contact on the right side of the air intake, and also one of the two Sauber Fords. I think that might have been Johnny Herbert, hard to tell, but Michael Schumacher in the spare Ferrari just pulls away. Damon Hill consolidates second, Eddie Irvine a fine start in third, and looks like Mika Hakkinen in fourth.
Well, of course, what happened there is Damon had an absolute storming start. Eddie didn't want to let him go, and Eddie's pushing him all over the place, coming down to that sequence there. And of course, as they came down, Damon was really trying to hold his line, and of course that allowed Michael Schumacher to pull away. Remember, there isn't that much difference between these cars. What is 22 pounds? But it's quite a lot when it comes to setting up to get in the ultimate time. So I believe the two Ferraris are very evenly matched, and Michael has won with his car before this year. But of course, he's getting Hakkinen's attentions, is Eddie Irvine right now. Eddie's got to settle down. It was a very nice, clean start for everybody there, but of course, poor old Jacques Villeneuve, he did not benefit at all. He had a dismal start, and he's really going to pay for that.
And Eddie Irvine dropped back now a little bit. I'm surprised there just how much he's dropped back in those final two corners as Mika Hakkinen looks to dive out on the inside of Irvine into turn one, but Irvine shuts the door and says, no way, Mika. But of course, Michael Schumacher, look, streams away. Remember, he's only had a couple of laps in this car, literally the out lap, and then when he did the parade lap, so nothing wrong with the original Ferrari, the way Schumacher's driving it.
No, well, I believe I'm right in saying, John, he's driven it a few times before, and there's very little difference between them. But looking at Mika has to be very, very careful back there. If he starts to push Eddie around a lot, he's going to upset his own tyre setup. He's going to destroy his tyres. And of course, that's what you don't need. You need to be so immaculate, as we said earlier. If you over-push the car, overdrive the car, you've got the situation that you unbalance the tyres, you stress them out, and of course, you lose time, and you've got to go in early for. But there's a shot, of course, of Magnussen in the pits. They're trying to change something on the side of the car. He did damage, in fact, his intakes, but it looks like it was only wheel contact. You see the black tyre mark there on his right-hand side. Here we are, another shot of it happening. Let's just go back and watch what's taking place.
Indeed, that was one of the two. Oh, more contact indeed. That was outside of what we saw in turn one. That was Tarso Marquez, but the original incident we saw was Jan Magnussen and Gianni Morbidelli. So Magnussen back out. We're looking to see whether Morbidelli will be able to do so. There are our top six. No big surprises. Damon Hill currently fastest race lap, and that, Derek, clearly is an indication of just how good the Bridgestone tyre is.
Well, exactly, John, and in fact Damon has caught up 0.3 of a second in that lap on Michael Schumacher. Absolutely remarkable to notice, and of course Damon is not necessarily going to stop 3 times, so it is going to be very, very intriguing race, and Damon doing an outstanding job. But let's face it, the engine, the Yamaha engine, hasn't performed that outstandingly this year. But of course it is the Bridgestone tyres, and everybody said they would work extremely well here. They are working well, and of course Hill, after all, was world champion last year and is the current world champion at this time.
And Damon had some comments about that great qualifying run. He said, my job is not yet done in Formula One. I believe that I should be in a front-running car, not because I deserve it, but because I can give my best in that situation. Now clearly that's what we're seeing Damon Hill doing, but I have to counter that comment by saying you should be giving your best in every situation, good car, bad car, but certainly a great run by Damon Hill in second place, drawing away from Eddie Irvine in third, with Mika Hakkinen in fourth, Jacques Villeneuve fifth, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen sixth. And we wait to see the gap as they come across the line. Visually, it's certainly stabilized. Let's have a look, 1.495 seconds. Irvine a further, well, just over 2 seconds behind. And there are the first 6. They remain unchanged. So as this race begins its 4th lap, we're now going to settle into our first commercial break. Stay with us, we'll be back in a moment. Back to the Hungaroring. We're on lap 5 of 77 this afternoon. Michael Schumacher continues to lead this Grand Prix, but the gap is reducing. Damon Hill, and it's less than that 1.259. We're looking at Eddie Irvine third, Mika Häkkinen fourth, Jacques Villeneuve fifth, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen round out the top sixth. David Coulthard 7, Johnny Herbert 8, Jean Alesi 9, and teammate Berger in 10th. Then you've got Jarno Trulli and Rubens Barrichello in 11th and 12th, but that gap, Derek, is clearly being run down by the world champion Damon Hill.
Absolutely amazing. We haven't seen these two dice for 12 months nearly. It's great to see it happening, but of course it's great for the Arrows team to get this performance at this stage. Damon obviously absolutely on a roll, but remember, he has won here twice, and he always puts up outstanding performances. And this circuit, as we can see from the two Jordan drivers who have had a really dismal weekend, is down to experience, and these guys are very experienced to the front. And in fact, the first three on the grid had all won this Grand Prix. That means that tells us something, and it is experience, because look at the twists and turns. It helps with the setup, knows just where you should line your car up for the next corner. But look at Damon, he's all over the back of Schumacher as they come down. In fact, to lap somebody already, no doubt one of the cars that was involved in that first lap melee.
Well, Damon Hill driving, I would say, the race of his career to date. No doubt aided by a very fine set of Bridgestone rubber, but don't take anything away from the Arrows team. They've worked. I tell you, nobody in the pit lane has worked as hard. They've had to take the pressure, the press, the difficulties that we saw at the British Grand Prix, and Tom Walkinshaw really just got some dirty water off his chest and expressed some home truths about Damon Hill's efforts in the team. Well, Damon Hill's best response is here this afternoon. He is hounding down Michael Schumacher, and in the last lap he's virtually taken a second out of the race leader, to a point where now he's in position to challenge. Now, getting into the position to challenge is easy. Getting the job done and taking the lead will be more difficult. Remember, the Yamaha motor is nowhere near as powerful as that is the Ferrari that Michael Schumacher and Irvine, of course, using step one. That's the earlier Ferrari engine, which they've been so successful with all year.
Well, as you see them come down that straight, John, there doesn't seem any lack of power in that Yamaha engine today when you consider what the Ferraris have been producing. If anything, Damon caught Schumacher up. But of course, let's not forget that he was in the slipstream, or in the draft of Schumacher, and that would have enabled him to have clean air. Oh, look at this move here as Villeneuve tries to does go by Irvine. Oh, he doesn't. No, yes, he does. He's got the next line. Oh, very interesting bit of driving going on there.
Well, Derek, to me, that's a touch of Jacques Villeneuve's IndyCar driving technique. He went around the outside of Irvine and got the job done. Irvine is dropping back, but here we are back at the focus of what is happening for the lead of this Grand Prix. And when we look at the relative merits of the engines, the difference, of course, between the Ferrari and the Arrows is the tyre. Michael Schumacher is running on the optional Goodyear. That's the softer of the two Goodyear choices. Damon Hill is on the optional of the Bridgestone. That's the softer of the two Bridgestone choices. But we have felt, and it has been generally considered, that there is going to be one or two events during the year when Bridgestone will have a distinct advantage. And I have to say, give credit to Damon Hill, to Yamaha, to Arrows, but give the majority of it to those superb Japanese Bridgestone tyres.
Indeed, you're right, John. Of course, we've been under the impression that Damon would be making two stops. He cannot surely be running with more fuel than Michael. He surely wouldn't be able to stay with him. Michael running low fuel and also the softer tyres. Damon running the harder tyres and more fuel. It doesn't quite add up at the moment, so maybe we just don't Irvine in the pits. Oh dear, oh dear. Wonder what happened there. Obviously the tyres went off, something he wasn't happy with, the balance of the car, so he's come in. Quick stop, is it? Yes, and he's off out again.
Well, that was not a scheduled stop for the Ulsterman. He had to come into the pits, change tyres, whether he maybe picked up some debris. There was debris, Derek, down on the track in turns two. We saw that collision with one of the Minardis, and it could be one of those little shards of carbon fibre has just sliced its way. But look, Damon Hill, I have never seen Damon race as hard as this with Michael Schumacher since way back in '95. Gianni Morbidelli in the pits. Now, we knew he had contact early in that first corner, so this is yet another trip into the pits for the Italian on his return to Grand Prix racing since his wrist injury back in June. Well, still working away at Morbidelli's car. Now they're going to maybe change the nose, but this battle, real nit and tuck at the front. Michael Schumacher doing a job very similar to that Belgian Thierry Boutsen did back in 1990. Boutsen won this Grand Prix and he fended off Ayrton Senna and the rest of the field that day for the entire 77-lap race distance, and that is the problem at Damon Hill. And now Hakkinen, Villeneuve, Frentzen beginning to draw up towards the back of Hill. Michael Schumacher's holding this race up.
Yes, he certainly is, John, and of course he's holding it up at the same time. The reason he's holding it up is he's trying to block out Damon's efforts to go by him. And as we've said on many occasions, this enables the guys behind to catch up. And this is what you want as a driver in the back group. You think, oh good, those two are having a dice. I can make up the advantage here. Look at those fastest laps. Damon, a tenth of that quicker, tenth of a second quicker than Schumacher at any one point so far. But of course, I believe at this time he's just holding up the group. Look at them all queuing up behind Schumacher. This isn't good at all for Michael, not what I anticipated.
But Derek, isn't it great for us? Isn't this a great race? The world champion chasing the former world champion, Ferrari under pressure from Arrows. The last time Arrows were in a position like this, there is Morbidelli finally out of the race. The last time I saw an Arrows racing like this was all the way back in 1981 in Long Beach when Riccardo Patrese got pole for that Grand Prix, and in fact he didn't really go much further than getting pole position. He was overwhelmed by everybody else.
It appears that Schumacher's running some nearly 3 seconds a lap slower than he was, and the group of cars behind him, and he really is holding these guys up. There's going to be some major move soon. I just wonder what exactly is going on in his head. Is Damon down the inside? No, Schumacher doesn't let him go by. It just shows when a guy is so much slower down a straight, just what a difference he can mean. You think you can get by, but on these twisty tracks, you cannot get by. Michael just doesn't seem quick into these corners at all.
Michael has just got zero grip all around the circuit. Damon Hill all over him like a rash, and Damon really just trying every opportunity that exists, and he's trying to actually force some of those. But now with Mika Hakkinen clawing his way up to the rear of Damon Hill on turn 14, that's the final corner onto the start-finish straight. That's where Damon Hill has got a significant advantage, and that's where Mika Hakkinen has got to try to keep in contact. If he's going to do anything with Damon Hill, he's got to get it done and use the power advantage that Mercedes engine clearly has got. With all this excitement, we're going to take a quick commercial break to catch our breath. Stay with us and come back and see, is Schumacher still leading? Schumacher leads, end of lap 10, Damon Hill in second place. Damon Hill's gone down the inside, he's taken the... Derek, I cannot believe it, Damon Hill has taken the lead on lap 11 of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher down to third, and now Mika Hakkinen and Jacques Villeneuve are going to do, I think, the same that we have seen. Look at Mika Hakkinen's car, blue smoke came off. Was that a brake lockup? Was that a mechanical problem? But Damon Hill is just charging into the distance. Here now on lap 12, Damon Hill leads the Hungary. I can't believe it.
That is unbelievable. I mean, he's actually was 3 and 3.5 seconds slower the last couple of laps, Schumacher. He obviously has a major problem with the car. Just not forget, the poor guy is not in the car that he works on all weekend because he crashed it this morning. That's his fault. I know that. But of course, the trouble is you hadn't got the time to get the car set up for the race, and this is where he's lost out. And he is just having a major problem right now. Right, and meanwhile, of course, Johnny Herbert, he's worked. Look at the lead Damon's got. Of course, meanwhile, Johnny Herbert's caught up with this group, so he's got over the back of David Coulthard, to the back of the shot you saw there. Hakkinen is on the back of Michael Schumacher, so we'll see if Mika can make that move. But Damon's grip, as he came out of that last turn onto the pit straight, he would just fly up behind Schumacher as he came onto the straightaway. It's a puff of smoke yet again from the back of Hakkinen's car. It certainly isn't tires because it's coming out onto the straightaway. So he's got a little bit of a problem. There it is again as he backs off and downshifts. You see the puffs as he shifts down a couple of gears to go down the hill.
Well, 5 seconds advantage.
Hakkinen
is in trouble. We anticipated that. We saw the smoke start just on the exit of 2 into 3. It continued around the circuit. Mika Hakkinen is out. Looks like the first major retirement of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Damon Hill pulls away, absolutely majestic as we watch Mika Hakkinen. I can't believe it. The guy should have won the British Grand Prix. Was so strong, David Coulthard that is, in the Canadian Grand Prix. Here, an early retirement on lap 12, retires from the Hungarian Grand Prix. And Damon Hill, solitary in the lead. Arrows, Yamaha, Bridgestone. Damon Hill, the world champion, came back from a serious ticking off by team boss Tom Walkinshaw prior to the British Grand Prix. Had a sound race in the British Grand Prix. did a good job. The team did a good job back in Germany. But now, look, Michael Schumacher under pressure from Jacques Villeneuve, the challenger to Schumacher in this year's World Championship. Remember, Schumacher has a 10-point advantage in the championship over Jacques Villeneuve. Schumacher in the spare car, Villeneuve in the regular race car. Villeneuve looks to see if he can feint down the inside. Michael Schumacher will defend, but the job was done. Jacques Villeneuve manages to get into the corner and hold line. Now it's Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Well, of course, Schumacher was very good there. He didn't have much option. He knows he's holding the guys up, but he wasn't going to give it up easily. Remember, Frentzen is behind him, and Frentzen, of course, is on the, I believe I'm right in saying, on the harder tyres. This is just what Frentzen needed, because he hadn't had to pressure it, so he's been saving his tyres quite nicely back there, just following Jacques Villeneuve around. He's now going to have to push a bit, because he doesn't want to let Jacques get away. Frentzen needs a good run this weekend. He needs a good race. He's had some dismal performances this season. And if he's to stay with Williams, he needs a good run, but he's got Coulthard all over the back and Johnny Herbert right behind him as well.
Well, if we ever needed a joker in the pack for this weekend's Grand Prix, Michael Schumacher played it for us this morning when he went off around the back of the circuit. We reckon it was somewhere around about turn 11, which is the corner they just come out of. And in fact, just to make it a family affair, young Ralf Schumacher, brother of Michael, went off at the same part of track, literally in the wheel tracks of Michael. So maybe the Schumachers found something on the track that nobody else. Michael Schumacher into the pit lane. He is in tire trouble on a car that he's only done about 3 laps in prior to the Grand Prix. So both Ferraris early stoppers. Irvine was in for a loose wheel nut. He's back out. But Michael Schumacher in all sorts of trouble. This is a very, very early stop indeed. New rubber, remember, that's the optional, the soft compound. Once you make your commitment on Saturday afternoon for qualifying, 6 seconds, no fuel went in as far as I could see. Once you make your commitment on Saturday afternoon for tyres, those are the tyres you must race on. Unlike IndyCar, Racing Car, PPG, you can alter your tyre choice after your first run. In Formula One, there is no option.
And of course, the problem is there, John, is that Schumacher would have probably liked the softer compound tyre on his lighter, slightly lighter, better balanced car than he did for this car. And of course, he's committed to the tyres that he got himself on yesterday for the car that he's running today, and that's been his dilemma. And of course, as I said, he didn't have the chance to actually set the balance up. He may well have a badly understeering car, and of course, there's nothing you can do about that. He wasn't going to find that out with this car in just a couple of laps of warm-up this morning following his incidents in the old one.
Well, there we see Michael Schumacher drop down to 10th place. Well, once again, after all this excitement, we're going to take a few moments of relaxation and a commercial break. Damon Hill dominates after 15 laps, starts lap 16, 7.9 seconds. Lap 17 of 77 laps this afternoon. Damon Hill is just pulling away, consummate ease. Second place now, Jacques Villeneuve. Heinz-Harald Frentzen third, David Coulthard fourth, Johnny Herbert up to fifth, and Jean Alesi in the first of the 2 penitents in 6th place. Gerhard Berger, teammate, all the way down to 13th, and he's got a line of 5 or 6 cars behind him, so Berger in trouble, but Alesi just into the points.
In fact, just noticing this, see, we got some pit stoppers already, but in fact, I've just been watching some of the timing, and of course, there have been some improvements in that Villeneuve is gradually pulling in Damon Hill right now. And of course, Frentzen is as well. They're clocking in some very quick laps. Still a long way to go. And of course, as you just said, John, they're going to have to stop at any time at all for some tyres and fuel. And we just don't really know what Damon's strategy is. I can't believe that he was on a full tank of fuel the way he stayed up and was prepared to pull away from the whole race. But you never know. These tyres and that chassis obviously are working constantly well with Damon's tremendous experience. And of course, the fact that he obviously loves this little circuit.
Well, he's driving in a way we haven't seen him drive since, really, I suppose you have to say, at the end of his 96 season. Superb win that really confirmed his World Championship. There is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, fastest race lap. Michael Schumacher currently residing all the way down in 10th place, well and truly out of the points. But remember, he had an early pit stop. Problem is that the left rear tyre, that's the tyre that does the bulk of the work, predominantly right-hand corner circuit. And that's been wearing very heavily indeed. Michael Schumacher, of course, the master of his own destiny by going off track this morning and resulting in damage to the car. Too severe to see him use that lightweight Ferrari. That's the car he ran here all weekend in that spare car, and it's turned from absolute glory into a disaster. And I can't imagine that Michael Schumacher is going to be looking like a podium prospect this afternoon.
I think also we ought to mention, of course, that the car isn't actually a super light car. The fact is it's lighter than the previous Ferrari that they built. It's still not down to the weight limit of 1,309 pounds, but it means, of course, that they can shuffle that weight around a little bit, shuffle some weight around to actually alter the balance of the car, and that's what they would have done on his car for this weekend setup. Because he's crashed it, it means that he hasn't got that weight. He's not allowed to. There's no possibility to move it around to take the weight off that corner that he's wearing, John. So he can't actually balance it out that way.
Well, Damon Hill's lead over Jacques Villeneuve is 4.1 seconds. And now coming into lap traffic, Damon Hill running behind teammate Pedro Diniz. Diniz, of course, has been into the pits for a stop. Diniz, as we mentioned in the pre-show piece, did a lot of running this morning, did endurance running to gain information for the team. That information clearly has benefited Damon Hill, but Damon now also considering if he's on a two-stop, I beg your pardon, three-stop, whatever it is, we don't know. The teams won't tell us. I wonder why. But Damon Hill leads this Grand Prix on Bridgestone tyres. This is the first time we've seen Bridgestone dominate a Grand Prix. I think we might not see it happen again. Well, maybe this year on some of the slower circuits, but Damon Hill gets past teammate Pedro Diniz without any problem whatsoever.
But he does need to, John, because he's losing about a second a lap to Jacques Villeneuve, who is catching him up behind. Remember, Jacques lying second in the World Championship, 10 points behind Schumacher. He needs to capitalise on Schumacher's problems this weekend and really get in there and get maximum points. And Jacques is doing a tremendous job working his way through with Frenzen not far behind him.
The gap, 3.5 seconds. That was a reduction of over half a second on lap 19. Of course, now Villeneuve is going to have to deal with the traffic that Damon Hill has had to deal with. But we've seen a drive from a world champion, a world champion's drive. Damon Hill said it himself. I deserve it because I can give my best in that situation. He was talking about a competitive car, leading a race, or simply running at the front. Amazing that the guy can lift his game to such a level. Yet somehow that character, we still have got to see more character from Damon. But this afternoon, well, that's eclipsing everything that has gone before in this season.
I think as drivers ourselves, John, in the past, one does appreciate exactly what he's going through, and that is you get the situation where you can see light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what he's seen. He saw his great chance yesterday. He knew he could pull out, go a bit quicker. He gets a much quicker time in qualifying than anybody dared hope, and here he is leading the race, which I'm sure he didn't think he could do. But of course, you show a star driver, a top driver, that chance, you give him the machinery, and he will push that little bit extra. He'll give that 110% so that he can actually just go ahead and push himself to that limit. When you're in 13th, 15th, 18th place, there really isn't the incentive. I know you should give that performance, but sometimes you think, what is it worth? What's worth risking my life for 15th place in the Grand Prix? And that's what Damon's going through.
So the gap down to 3.2 seconds. With a curious effort, Jacques Villeneuve claws his way. Jos Verstappen about to go a lap down to Damon Hill, and around this part of the track the advantage is swinging to Jacques Villeneuve, because clearly Verstappen unable to run at the pace Damon Hill has got the potential to, and Damon not much able to do anything until he can get back onto the straight and just use the power of the Yamaha engine to pull out of turn 14 and get the pass done over start finish line. Pedro Diniz really fighting very hard and doing a good teammate's job for Damon Hill. He's running as hard as he can, doing the same to Villeneuve that Verstappen, probably not intentionally, is doing to Damon Hill. There you see the first of those two cars, Verstappen, then Damon Hill comes across the line, start lap 22. Can Villeneuve get past Pedro Diniz down in the inside? Well, that's an easy job, but Damon Hill gets it done on Verstappen. So Yamaha power outpowers Ford. Interesting comment this weekend, in fact, from Jack Nasser, the president of Ford. He was here to confirm Ford's commitment to the Formula One program, and he said if we've got to up the program, we will do it, and if it means we've got to make sacrifices elsewhere, we'll make those sacrifices. And as regards the second team having parity of equipment, we're all big boys, he said, we'll deal with it. Damon Hill leads on lap 22. Jacques Villeneuve closing down, but in traffic. Stay with us, we'll be back. Welcome back to the Hungaroring. A major battle going on. This is in the midfield. If you look at Michael Schumacher, he's running all the way down. Oh, Berger. Oh, that was... I don't know who that was. Was it... Hard to tell. I think that might have been Gerhard Berger. But Jarno Trulli now under pressure from Michael Schumacher. So, big moment down the back. That was John Alesi indeed, not Gerhard Berger. Alesi, let's look again and sees he runs wide, gets two outside wheels on the dirt. The bottom of the car actually straddles that curb. That's what caused the car to get all squirrely. But Jarno Trulli now has taken away that 6th place from Jean Alesi. Michael Schumacher runs behind him. So looking into the pit lane, we can see that Williams and Arrows are beginning to get their teams prepared for a pit stop, the first stop in the afternoon for these two teams. And strategy, really, we don't know whether they're going to do two, whether they'll do a very quick first stop. The problem here, of course, has always been overtaking. One man who managed to overcome that was Nigel Mansell back in 1989. He started this Grand Prix in 12th place and battled and won on merit that Grand Prix. A superb drive from the Brit in a Ferrari in 1989.
It's interesting to note there, John, that in fact it's Nakano that is right ahead of Michael Schumacher, and Michael can't do much about it. And in front of him, of course, is Ralf Schumacher, and it could well be the first time that we're going to see confrontation between the two brothers. We'll just have to wait and see, but it's a long way back. But I'm sure Michael doesn't need all this group in front of him. He's well down, and he needs a break here to get up into those points.
Well, some battle going down. I mean, Michael Schumacher battling with Shinji Nakano. I think that says something about the Bridgestone tyre and also about the situation Michael Schumacher found himself in. And Jacques Villeneuve, the second place man, into the pits. So Jacques Villeneuve vacates that second place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen will take it. Is that trouble on the right front? Looks a slowish stop for the Williams team. Not the best work once again. Problem always. David Coulthard in, they've sold McLaren in this Grand Prix. Remember, Mika Hakkinen went out with a hydraulics problem, but Villeneuve rejoins, as does David Coulthard. Slide in, there's just ahead, and that was Nakano. So the battle going on down the field. Jordan, Nakano, Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill still leads here this afternoon. Took the lead from Michael Schumacher in an emphatic style, just simply had more grip, but was driving superbly.
Yes, he's still driving absolutely immaculately there, John, and of course he has that little advantage that he's in the front. He drives it. Oh, he's going in the pits, John, so he is going in.
Damon Hill has lost the lead of this Grand Prix, but he's come into the pit lane, no worry. Damon Hill hard on the brakes, so Heinz-Harald Frentzen will now take the lead of this afternoon's Grand Prix in Hungary, a lead that we're going to see fluctuate from team to driver all afternoon.
Just remember, of course, that Frentzen is on the harder tyre, so therefore he doesn't have to make a stop at this point. He's still going to make two stops, or at least that's what we anticipate, but of course there's a great advantage he has that he's in the lead. He can now consolidate on that, get some points up in front. Damon is on the same strategy as everybody else out there, and that's 3 stops.
And real pressure for the Arrows team. They've never had a situation where their driver has been leading a Grand Prix, so it was a question of just calm, take it easy. 8.9 seconds was the time Damon Hill spent. Probably not as quick as Ferrari or McLaren or other teams might do, but important to make the stop clean and safe. Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher now into the pits. Well, so this was, I thought, going to be possibly a 1, possibly a 2. Looks like a 2-stopper. The Jordan team really very disappointing indeed. And so Barrichello gets out.
That's actually a very, very good stop, and Barrichello is doing a great job at the moment. Look at the fastest lap by Heinz-Harald Frentzen. That's the quickest so far, 1:18.3. He's really got it together when he got a clear lap in front of him. My goodness me. Alesi coming in, of course, remember, he did go off the road just now, and I'm sure he didn't do the car any favours when he slid off and took it down that curving. It never does much for the under tray, but he had a very good pit stop, and he's off out. But look at that order now, what a change.
And Damon Hill got back out in second place, and that is a major, major achievement by the team. Villeneuve down in 4th, David Coulthard 5th, and Jarno Trulli in 6th. Johnny Herbert was in 3rd place, so score that one off my top 6 list. Johnny Herbert in the Sauber Petronas drives into the pit lane, of course, at 70 miles an hour maximum. Jarno Trulli also in. So this Grand Prix we thought was going to be won in the pit lane, but Derek, I have to say, I think it's going to be won more in the tyre trucks. This is a race that we always know is about tyres. Keep an eye, particularly on the straight. As you get this camera shot, you'll see a lot of rubber shed off the tyres, and that is something that will come into play as this race progresses. Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads the Grand Prix, trying to find a way past Gerhard Berger. This is a lap on Gerhard Berger from race leader Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but will Frentzen go into the pits? No, he doesn't, but Gerhard Berger does.
And that's just what Heinz-Harald needed. He just didn't need that loss of time as he came through those turns there. He probably lost a second or so on that lap. Nonetheless, he's still having a really good run up there at front. Maybe his strategy will start to pay off. It'd be great to see, after all the fuss between Villeneuve and Schumacher, to find that Frentzen is the one that benefits today. But it's still a long way to go.
Gerhard Berger in. Well, they didn't. What are they doing? It's a strange stop. Gerhard Berger out again.
They didn't appear to change the tyres. The tyres still had the gravel on.
So Frentzen still leads by 19.9 seconds from Damon Hill. Frentzen, of course, has not had a pit stop, and we suspect that he is on a two-stopper. He's on that harder tyre that Goodyear provide. That's the prime tyre. Damon Hill on the softer of the Bridgestone options. So Damon Hill, 19.9 seconds. We've got to keep an eye on the lap times of race leader Frentzen and that of Damon Hill running in second place. Villeneuve in third place as we look at Shinji Nakano. Another good race from the young Japanese. First-time visitor here to the Hungaroring, into the pits. Remember, both the Prost Mugen Hondas on that Bridgestone tyre as well. But only one man, one team has really made it come alive. That's Damon Hill and Arrows Yamaha. So the lead is Frentzen, Hill, Villeneuve as they come across the line for the 28th of 77 times. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, one more lap. Something came off the car. Now, was that rubber or was that a wheel nut? Something came off or flew. Now, a big lump of black. I couldn't tell whether it was a chunk of rubber or whether it was something that was on the car worked loose. We have to find out. Oh, look at that, the back, a big flame out of the back of Frentzen's car. Now, is that related to that black piece that we saw fly off the right rear of that car? We're waiting to see what the pictures tell us. 22, oh, in trouble. Frentzen is in trouble. Something went wrong as he came past the pits, but we can't tell. But a big shoot of flame, I think there's something on the oil system of the car or the hydraulic system may well have malfunctioned. That might understand why that big. There it is again. There is some liquid, probably hydraulic fluids, getting onto the exhaust, and that is what we're seeing. Real drama. There's the wisp of blue smoke, Derek, from the rear of the car.
Yes, you can see that wisp of smoke, John. You see that trail behind it. As he backs off, it's obviously something. Although they're checking on the track, something did come off. They did go and pick it up, get it out of the way, but something is major there. Might be a bit of exhaust, of course, something similar to that, but I would say he's going to have to come in very shortly. Yeah, they called him in. They're going to check it out. How sad for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's doing such a tremendous job, just got quickest lap of the race, and he must wonder what he just has to do to get that good result. At some point he'll get it, but not today, I think.
Well, that was a very strange situation. I don't know whether the team really are aware of it. They must have seen the TV. The teams monitor, of course, everything on track from the monitors in the garage. They're all looking around the right rear of the car. I imagine it's like a little inspection panel or something that might be there. They're saying, forget it, Heinz-Harald, it's all over. Patrick Head, technical director, gets down, looks at it, stands up and thinks, what is that? What went wrong? We saw a large piece. There's the flame. Now, I suspect that that's, look at that. There is liquid, there are fuels of some description getting onto the exhaust. And for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, disaster.
Yeah, it's when he backed off. It's as he backs off on the throttle, out comes this big flame, which shows there's something, fuel or something like that, is actually pouring into the system when he backs off. In other words, it wasn't being burnt. It was a tremendous amount of fuel. Very sad for Frentzen.
Damon Hill now continues to lead this Grand Prix. We're going to take a break and find out a little bit more if we can about Frentzen. As Damon Hill crosses start-finish line for the 31st time. We're getting very close into the mid part of this range. Rubens Barrichello, he's also had another disappointing day for the Ford team. Magnussen, of course, he had contact in the first corner and subsequently retired. Villeneuve second, Coulthard third, Michael Schumacher, an amazing recovery after his early race problems in fourth. Johnny Herbert fifth, and Eddie Irvine sixth. There we're looking at the Williams team, and there's the watch on the left of your screen. This is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Something shoots out from the side of the car. That was the part, but there it goes. Look, now that, Derek, looks like, I don't know, it's a part of metal for sure, the way it bounced across the track, but it caused liquids, maybe fuel or oil or hydraulic fluid, to get onto the exhaust.
Exactly. I just can't imagine what. In fact, another bit went up in the air as well, John, just following it. So it's quite a major let down back there, and who knows what it was. I'm sure we'll find out pretty shortly. But this is one heck of a race going here. Damon does not need this group in front of him. They're all going for positions as well. Damon doesn't need to be hung up by them, and he's actually been there now for one whole lap. He certainly doesn't need it. Schumacher has actually been plucking away and has been taking nearly a second a lap off Damon for the last few laps. But remember, of course, his pit stop strategy is all out of shape. No doubt he's going to have to do a lot of work back there. They're going to have to calculate just how he can get by with only just the 2 more stops to keep it to a 3-stop strategy. Not a difficult thing to do, but he's obviously got the tyre set up working better. Now there's some rubber laid down on the track. Maybe that's it. And of course, there you can see Michael back there, not very far behind Coulthard, and of course not behind Villeneuve. The 2 or 3 seconds just splitting this group up. Very close running, and this of course is going to turn into something pretty exciting in my opinion, because they've all just had their pit stops apart from Michael, and he's probably going to have to hang out there a little bit longer as his tyres deteriorate.
Well, this battle now for second place, Villeneuve, Coulthard, Michael Schumacher. They're getting into Constantina, and there, look around the track, the amount of rubber that is being shed off these tyres. And we're still not yet at half distance. The gap, 12.665 seconds between Damon Hill and Villeneuve, but they're almost irrelevant. You can see it, it's almost within a reaching distance. Villeneuve ahead of David Coulthard. We're on board with the young Scotsman in his McLaren Mercedes. This another fine drive from David Coulthard, having had a somewhat mixed qualifying session weekend to date. Out-qualified by teammate Mika Häkkinen. David Coulthard qualified down in 8th place, Häkkinen in 4th. But for Häkkinen, very short race this afternoon. He retired very early with hydraulic problems. Damon Hill still in control. The 2 cars, Derek, ahead of him are both Minardi Hart. And you would say ordinarily that's not a problem, but they're both on the same tyre as Damon Hill. So the advantage that Damon and Michael Schumacher is in, this is the second stop. I was just about to get into the Minardi thing, but this much more important. So 33 laps completed, Michael Schumacher in for the second time. Quick stop from the Ferrari guys, excellent teamwork, and really what an improvement we've seen in the Ferrari team since Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne have joined it. There's a great sense of organisation and harmony there. Eddie Irvine, who was running down in 6th place. So Michael Schumacher, in my view, comes out having stopped in 5th. With Eddie Irvine, teammate, in 6th. David Coulthard just drops back momentarily to catch his breath. The problem of running very close to another car is, well, Derek, tell us all about that.
Well, of course, John, there's just this tremendous turbulence. It's something they seem to have overcome in IndyCar racing on the ovals, but as far as Formula One's concerned, it seems a major problem. They get this tremendous turbulence around the back of the car. Remember, there's air flowing under the car at high speed, air flowing over the car. And of course, on a circuit like this, where you have so many corners, it's very, very, very difficult to actually get close to somebody, because your car is not doing the job it should do. Therefore, the tyres are sliding around and you're wearing the tyres out. And of course, you have to come in with these pit stops, and this is what they don't want. So when you want to attack, you have to drop back, let the tyres cool down, and then come through. There is something actually quite interesting that we picked up just now, and the Williams team said that the fuel equipment on the car, the actual fuel nozzle on the Williams car of Frentzen had actually broken, which meant they couldn't refuel the car, which probably means that it had fallen off in that lot that was flying in the air. Hence the fuel, the excess fuel that was running over down the back of the car and kept igniting when he backed off.
Well, certainly a very scary, potentially scary moment for Frentzen, and another area of disappointment for the Williams team to let Heinz-Harald Frentzen lose a valuable lead in a race. And remember that Frentzen had opted to run on that prime Goodyear, the harder Goodyear. He clearly would have been in a 2-stop race strategy, and to let one of those 2 cars go out, it's bad enough when a driver throws it away, but when a team lets the driver down, well, I mean, it's quid pro quo. Michael Schumacher 2 seconds ahead of teammate Eddie Irvine, but this is the battle that's been raging now for second place between Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams Renault and David Coulthard. These 2 guys, of course, neighbours when they're down in their residence in Monte Carlo. Young guys, they like to go out, have a bit of fun in Monte Carlo. But we get back to the front, and we look there to see Damon Hill, the Minardis, and a gaggle of cars make their way down. Again, the rubber, Derek, on the side of the track, particularly just offline. How bad is that?
Well, it just happens to, I mean, they say this track is exceptionally bad. Remember, it's not used much, John. These days, it's only used once a year. I think they'll find their way now because of the cigarette problems or bans all around the world. They'll probably use this circuit somewhat more. However, they do get, it's not used very much, so therefore it does chew up the rubber. It is a lot of corners, so therefore all the in the corners as they're going, just let's listen to this as he goes around. Oh, coming in again, is that Eddie Irvine?
It's Eddie Irvine. Irvine in for a service at the Ferrari service station. Wheels off, fuel in. Eddie Irvine confirmed at Ferrari next year, and of course he celebrated that signing by buying himself a nice new Falcon 10 executive jet. Things aren't that bad in Formula 1 after all, Derek.
They were in my day, mate, when I got 500 quid at Grand Prix. Anyway, here we go. Eddie Irvine's out, but getting back to that rubber on the track, I didn't enlighten you much more about it, but the rubber does come peeling off the tyres, and of course you know, as you can see, you have to sweep from one turn to the other. You have to be on line all the time. If you just go in too fast, get out wide, you get on that rubber, get on that dirt, and your history, you're off the road. So you have to be immaculate.
Damon Hill, after 36 laps, continued to dominate this afternoon's Hungarian Grand Prix. We're watching for Jacques Villeneuve. Comes across the line. Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Hungaroring. We're just catching up with some of the back markers in the battle between the Minardis and the Tyrrells. Well, that's as important a battle as that of the lead. But the lead is still being retained by Damon Hill and the Arrows Yamaha. And he is just consolidating somewhere around about 12 seconds advantage over Jacques Villeneuve in second, with David Coulthard, well, in fact, up to 13 seconds. David Coulthard charging there. You can see the distance between himself. Jacques Villeneuve, well, that's something like 0.442, a good guess, I would have said. Johnny Herbert's in fourth, fine drive in the Sauber. Michael Schumacher fifth. Giancarlo Fisichella, one of the stars in Germany 2 weeks ago, up to sixth place. Remember, Jordan on again, that harder of the Goodyear choice of tyres. Shinji Nakano finds seventh ahead of Jarno Trulli, his teammate. Ralf Schumacher down in ninth, and Eddie Irvine, who's just been in the pits for fresh fuel and tyres, in 10th. We're on lap 38. We're very close. Oh, and again, bits of rubber. I'm not sure that's rubber or car. I'm getting almost neurotic every time you see something flying to the side of the track. Is it a car problem? But in reality, you're just getting huge balls of rubber getting shed to the side of the track.
Just remember, of course, that they're running much softer rubber than they did last year. Therefore, the rubber will peel off much more readily than it did last year, so there's going to be much more rubber out there. But of course, here we have Villeneuve and Coulthard having a real old dice here, but they're catching up these back markers, and Damon Hill's only just got past this group, and now, of course, these two guys have got to do it. Now, they pulled over very well. They're going to let both by. It's Verstappen, I think it is, going to let both of them by. Yes, he did. But of course, this is the chance that David Coulthard is looking for. He's waiting for Jacques Villeneuve to back off, coming into a corner behind a slower car, and he can just sort of slingshot his way through and maybe just out-drag him. As you can look at the brakings, he brakes right up behind that Williams. Then, of course, the Williams is on the power a bit sooner, and away he goes out of the corner. But as I say, DC is really waiting here, and in fact, he's not using all the road at all. He's just biding his time almost, waiting for Jacques to make some little error, and maybe he can slip by.
Well, Villeneuve has got to worry about two things. One is a lap car ahead of him, and the other is a competitor directly behind. So he wants to position himself in such a way that he can take advantage of the superiority of his equipment. Of course, David Coulthard's trying to put himself into position to be able to do so as well. So a game of cat and mouse going on as we look at Pedro Diniz and Yukio Katayama. There is the next car up. That's the Benetton. As Jacques Villeneuve really didn't do anything whatsoever in terms of running down the Benetton. Villeneuve, second place. David Coulthard right on his gearbox in third.
Schumacher's actually not doing too much about Johnny Herbert either. He stayed pretty much the same gap between Johnny Herbert the last two laps. But of course, it's all happening up front. David Coulthard streaking up behind Villeneuve. Again, we talked about the turbulence behind the car just now, and that is something that is really bothering David Coulthard, because he will be upsetting his tyres. What he doesn't want to do is to burn them up too quickly, and then he can't get close enough to Jacques to actually capitalise on it when the occasion arises. And he's having that problem here. He's biding his time. what he really needed was a slightly better pit stop just now. He would have been ahead of Villeneuve, and who knows, he may well have pulled away.
Well, Derek, a lot of battles going on, and they've got one for 5th place because Michael Schumacher, currently residing in that position, has got Giancarlo Fisichella giving him a lot of heat from behind. And again, oh, is that a pit stop? No, it's not. A very late cut by David Coulthard, trying to maximize exit speed out of 13. Probably compromised himself a little bit, I would have said, into 14 as a result.
He certainly did, John. I mean, he came right down the inside, which meant he couldn't get that lovely flowing motion onto the straight. However, it isn't that long a straight by most circuit standards, but it's still a long enough bit of road, and they are pulling actually 175. It is the fastest part of the track, 175 to 180 as they swept down that pit straight away. So he did need to get a good line through there, but you know, maybe it's something to do with his tyres. Maybe he is having this problem where he was up behind Jacques and he just understeered out wide, and he didn't want to hold the wheel in too tight because for fear of really destroying his front tyres. So that could be to do with it, and they are actually now dropping back from Damon Hill. They're back to 18.9 seconds.
Derek, great battle here going on for 5th place. Michael Schumacher fighting for that position, and Giancarlo Fisichella, the blood is up. The young Italian from Rome is charging, giving Jordan some relief from the nightmare of a weekend here in Hungary that they wished had never started. Well, there are fans, Derek, around the world for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Rubens Barrichello, Mika Häkkinen, Gianni Morbidelli and Jan Magnussen. And I'm sad to say they're all out of this afternoon's Grand Prix. We've seen Häkkinen retire early, Frentzen that problem which was fuel tank related. We don't know precisely what it was. So those 5 retirements are the only 5 retirements so far this weekend. 40 laps down, Villeneuve still in 2nd place, Coulthard still in 3rd. There's the problem. The pace of Villeneuve has been dictated to by the Benetton that's running ahead. And I suspect that this is now a question of trying to consolidate until we get near to another pit stop window. So, while they're working out on the racetrack, we're going to take the opportunity to take a quick commercial break. There are your top 6. Join us back here in a moment. That is Giancarlo Fisichella. His Grand Prix is over. Let's look and see what happened. Coming down, start finish straight. He dives down to the right. Michael Schumacher defends. Very hard indeed, but fair, Michael. Derek, what's your opinion on that one?
Well, they were good friends until just now. You said it would end in tears, John. I feel very sad for the young lad. It was very cruel on him, but you see, he went down the inside. There was a lot of dust. You saw it pouring off his tyres, and that's what did it. You see, he just couldn't decelerate at the same rate as Michael. Gets it all oppy-locky. Michael, he doesn't want to hit him, but he's all locked up, and of course that was it. In he goes, and that was the end of the story. Let's watch it again. You see he's down there. You see the dust flying. He's right on the inside line. There's dust in the air. He's got it all locked up already. Poor guy, there's nothing you can do about it. And unfortunately, of course, because these days they don't use clutches or foot clutches, very difficult to keep the engine running. Another shot again, John. See, yes. Look at Michael. He is very tight on him, but I don't blame him. Michael, look how Michael's got it sideways as well. He was actually not inclined to get in the corner too early either. Schumacher having a torrid time with the handling of his car with this tyre setup he's got at the moment. There you go. Damon's out front, having a wonderful drive. Outstanding drive.
Derek, I don't think we've got the Marquis of Queensberry's rules about the art of being a Grand Prix driver, but that was a fair but hard move that Schumacher made in Fisichella. And Fisichella, well, he's in the University of Formula One right now, and there's no one better to learn from than Michael Schumacher. Reflection back to your views in Hungary and Hockenheim when Michael gave Fisichella a lift back. I'm not quite sure the same situation will occur this weekend.
No, he made the comments afterwards what a gentleman Michael was, and it was a true test of a champion when he stops and picks up one of his young adversaries and shakes him by the hand and says, great drive. I don't think Fisichella will be up to Michael and offering him the same condolences this weekend, sad to relate. Great pity, but that is motor racing. It's cruel, it's a tough sport. It's not meant to be after you, madam. You know, it's not a royal garden party.
Damon Hill, 21 seconds. Advantage over Jacques Villeneuve. We're on lap 45. And we're going to be getting very close for the second stop. And Shinji Nakano. Fine drive. Well, the beneficiary of Fisichella's misfortunes. Alesi gets well and truly off the line to let the race leader go through. Damon Hill on lap 44 comes up through turn 13. Car looks absolutely perfect, looks glorious. We've never had the opportunity all year to make these compliments about the Arrows team, the Arrows chassis, the Yamaha engine, and of course those magical Bridgestone tyres. But today everything is coming up roses.
Well, look at Nakano. He's up there in 6th place. He's on the tyres. I just wonder why Trulli isn't doing such a good job either back there. But nonetheless, it is amazing to see Damon out there in front. I mean, if you had offered odds of 100 to 1, I'd have said no way. But he's just, look at the car. It's so smooth, so immaculate. You've got to give it to her, as you said just now. They have done a magnificent job. But this little group here, there's Villeneuve and David Coulthard. They're just not doing very well in this traffic, and it really is holding them up. Is he going to let them through? Yes, he's going to let them through. That was very good of the Tyrrell driver there, just to ease cross and let the 2 second and third men go through, but it has held them up somewhat.
Well, this battle has been really stalled out because of the Benetton ahead. Gerhard Berger has been running at the pace that Villeneuve's running at. Of course, on a track like this, Derek, you've been pointing out the problems of turbulence and disturbed air in front of you, and here's a classic case of it. Gerhard Berger not holding them up, but in reality, Villeneuve and Coulthard aren't able to do anything.
No, they're not, and of course they are. Meanwhile, Damon is pulling away all the time. The problem that Jacques has there is he obviously is trying to stop David Coulthard from getting too close, so he daren't have a look down the inside of Gerhard Berger unless he's really positive he's going to make the move, because if he has to back off, go back online again, then of course that makes all the difference in the world. Look at Nakano is only 0.3 of a second behind Michael Schumacher. That is absolutely nothing.
Well, Nakano has come in, that's Trulli, I beg your pardon. Trulli has been in and out in a disappointing drive this weekend from the team leader in the Prost Mugen Honda team, Shinji Nakano, the young Japanese, who is understandably driving under sufferance in the Prost team. They wanted to pitch him earlier in the year, and a few little politics got in the way, and it's a question of engines and drivers. So Nakano, once he's been given his head, and the British Grand Prix, he was allowed to do his own car setup, and he drove outstandingly well. Damon Hill once again leads this Grand Prix. He's really been in control all afternoon. Villeneuve second, Coulthard third. Join us back here in a moment. Back, and there's the man who's really been giving us a lot of excitement, Shinji Nakano, in the second of the Prost Mugen Hondas. He's been giving Michael Schumacher a really hard time. So that pit stop releases some of the pressure that the former world champion has been suffering. But here, David Coulthard in third continues to add pressure to Jacques Villeneuve running in second place, both really scrabbling for grip all the way around this 2.466 mile Hungaro circuit. Coming out of turn 13, there's a big bump, Derek, between 13 and 14. You can see how some of the cars really get unsettled as they come into that final long right-hand corner. Villeneuve second, Coulthard third.
And of course, that's where poor old Gerhard Berger went off yesterday, coming out of 13, going into 14. I'm sure that if you get sideways, then you catch the bump as well. It doesn't exactly help you getting back online again. I think that's why Gerhard flew off early. He didn't, of course, hit anything, but he did stall the engine. And he reckoned he was on a very good lap, but we all say that.
Looking as the cars, they're dropping downhill quite a steep drop, in fact. So get these helicopter shots. 48 laps, leading at 49 of 77. And now we got Michael and Ralf Schumacher 5th and 6th. So Shinji Nakano stop. Sees him drop behind. So the Schumacher brothers 5th and 6th. And for the first time, Ralf Schumacher's getting a glimpse of the points this afternoon. Irvine is 8th. Jean Alesi, disappointing 9th. Nakano pops back up in 8th place. But Alesi and Berger having a real contrast of a weekend to that they enjoyed in Hockenheim 2 weekends ago. Denise 13th, Verstappen 14th, Marquez 15th, and Mika Salo 16th. And last, Damon Hill puts another lap on the young Brazilian Tarso Marquez. Both Minardi Hearts, of course, on the Bridgestone tyre, as are the Prost Mugen Hondas, and both the Stuart Fords. Sadly, both Stuart Fords, they've retired. Magnussen had contact on the first corner in the opening lap, and that really saw the end of his afternoon. And Rubens Barrichello, he retired around about lap 32, 33. So another disappointment for the Ford-backed Stuart Grand Prix team.
They've got quite a bit of work to do there, John. The car seemed to handle quite well, but my goodness, when you just don't get the engines to last, you can't really get on with a proper development program. But Fords are doing such a tremendous job. They're totally committed, and I'm sure they'll come through at the end, as we've seen from other manufacturers over the years. Damien, meanwhile, is actually pulling away tenths of a second at a time from Jacques Villeneuve. As we said before, he is fighting like crazy there with David Coulthard, and of course that means that he's probably losing a bit of time defending his line, as it were. Meanwhile, Damon can get an immaculate line and just go away.
Hill just almost like a Sunday afternoon drive. This is typical of Damon Hill. When he's in control, when he's leading a Grand Prix, he is totally majestic. And this is the kind of situation he hopes to be in. I hope a little bit more maybe this year also, but certainly come the 98 season, in negotiation or in discussion, certainly with a number of teams, one of which we know about, that's the Sauber team. His prime hope, of course, he says, is to move into the McLaren team. Well, I wonder after this afternoon, will that be his same opinion? Damon Hill, 50 laps complete, and there David Coulthard breaks off this battle with Jacques Villeneuve for second place to make what will be his final stop. And this is where the McLaren team hope to get the job done. But the Jordan team is also ready, preparing for Ralf Schumacher. And okay, that long camera shot condenses what's happening, but the Jordan team had to clear their pits to allow Coulthard out. Now this is a critical stop, because McLaren, I believe, have gone to try to get David Coulthard past Jacques Villeneuve on this stop. We'll not know until Villeneuve makes this stop and everything then settles back down. But McLaren reputation for pit stops and strategy has always been first class. Johnny Herbert was running in 4th place, in for his final service, gets out. Sauber team in the headlines this weekend, as we have mentioned, with the Damon Hill story. Johnny Herbert would love to have Damon Hill as a teammate, because at least he says, I will have a top-ranked teammate with whom I'm totally fair. Damon Hill is in. Race leader is in for the second and final time.
It is a really very slow entry into that pits, but of course we have a tremendous zoom lens on. You see him wiping his visor across with his hand. He's got a very damp hand. They'll be wiping it across to clear any of the oils, and one of the mechanics comes up and he's actually polishing it off now to make sure there's nothing worse than sitting there and having the stuff on the front and the mechanic doesn't clean it off. Good stop by them, and Villeneuve's in the pits as well. So now this is going to be very, very critical for McLaren and for Villeneuve, because little chance of them catching Damon probably, but this pit stop is what it's all about, John.
Well, this is critical. Williams have had troubled pit stops in the past, but this looks a good one for the men from Wantage. 5.5 seconds. A blinder. Absolute blinder.
Now let's just see what happens. Where is the McLaren as they come along? Where is... See one of the Ferraris going in. Michael,
look at this. Coulthard gets out. Coulthard runs wide. Jacques Villeneuve cuts underneath him. Sorry, Derek, to cut across him, but you could just see what was going to happen. Coulthard has had the advantage of one lap. Villeneuve all over the place in turn 2. They drop down the hill. Ralf Schumacher in the pits for the Jordan. Goodness, what an amazing sight. Michael Schumacher gets back out.
Well, that certainly was a stir up there, John, to see the way Villeneuve did his number on Coulthard. Coulthard had to go out wide because you could see how committed Villeneuve was to it. It just shows how vital these pit stops are. But of course, meanwhile, which would be nice to be watching just to see what's happening. Here we are again. Look, David's still having a go at Villeneuve. Oh, look, he's got to have a go in a minute. But of course, this is what Villeneuve wants. Villeneuve's got to get his tyres up to temperature. He's got to adapt to the fact that, of course, he might have a slightly different tyre. He's going to work a little differently at this time.
Hill is in the lead after 52 laps, but the battle for second place is in fact getting even more intense. We saw David Coulthard as he came down pit straight. He tried to get the job done with Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve had no way. I'm letting you pass, my good friend David. I think Villeneuve's tyres in that little contretemps that we saw, he must have picked up maybe a little bit of dirt and dust. That's why Villeneuve really struggled in that first part of this opening lap. Now things under control again. Villeneuve 26.5 seconds behind race leader Damon Hill. David Coulthard maybe resigned. He gave it his best shot to try and get past as they came down into turn 1, but Villeneuve hard as tungsten.
Very good comment, John. Yeah, David's going to have to rethink it all again now, and that is a pity for David. And of course, Michael Schumacher will be ruining that, the fact that Coulthard didn't get by Villeneuve, which of course would have put him back as far as the points are concerned. Michael needs every chance he can, and of course so does Jacques. He needs every chance he can to get these maximum points today to catch up with Michael. I don't think he's going to overtake him, that is for sure, today, because he's 10 points behind. But nevertheless, still quite a way to go. All sorts of things going to happen, as we saw with Fisichella and Schumacher just a few laps ago.
Well, Damon Hill comes across the line for the 54th time this afternoon. 53rd time, I beg your pardon, on his 54th lap. This is the battle that really is holding our attention. David Coulthard trying everything in his little book of notes in Grand Prix racing. Jacques Villeneuve wide on the entry, then cuts back, makes a late apex, then lets the car sweep out on the exit, comes across the line for the 53rd time, and the gap is the same. Well, as this battle rages on for second place, and we're into the final segment of this Grand Prix, we're going to take a break. Join us in a moment. Welcome back to the Hungaroring. Jacques Villeneuve still in second place, but now some 27.6 seconds in arrears. Damon Hill once again just stamping an authority in this Hungarian Grand Prix. He's won twice here. He won in '93. That was, I think, his maiden Grand Prix victory, in fact, and then won last year, the 1926 Grand Prix, when he was en route to his World Championship. But now, look at this battle. Suddenly traffic has caused Villeneuve and Coulthard to concertina. Damon Hill comes across the start-finish line for the 55th time this afternoon. And once again, absolute perfection from the world champion.
There's some interesting work going on further down the field, John. In fact, we have Michael Schumacher, who was just ahead of Nakano. Oh, look, we have the other one. We have Denis parked on the edge of the road. I hope that is an ominous sign for Damon. But getting back to it again, we actually have the sight there of Michael Schumacher with Nakano behind him and his brother Ralph behind that in the other Jordan. And in fact, Ralph went by Nakano to put himself quite close behind Michael Schumacher. I just hope it's not the end of a beautiful relationship.
Well, a sad sight, and obviously that will cause concern in the Arrows Yamaha team. I just want to correct myself. Of course, Damon Hill won in 1995. It was teammate in '96 Jacques Villeneuve that won last year's Grand Prix. But two victories here for Damon Hill. In fact, the Williams team have been the most successful team in the previous 11 visits to the Hungaroring. They've had 6 victories. They're followed by McLaren, who've had 3, and Ferrari and Benetton 1 apiece. And if things continue as they are this afternoon, you've got to add Arrows, Yamaha to that list with 1 victory. But it's still a long way, Derek, and I don't want to count my chickens too soon. You said Irvine 4th, Johnny Herbert 5th, Michael Schumacher in 6th. And he's got baby brother Ralph now pressurising him for that final championship point. There it is. Shinji Nakano, he lost that 7th place to Ralph Schumacher. Jarno Trulli 9th. Ukio Katayama, he did a good job this morning. He's in 10th place, and really you can't expect much more with V8 power and the kind of budget that the Minardi team are able to afford.
Jacques seems to hit a lot of these situations where he is spent defending his line. It's obviously great experience he's had from IndyCar racing. Remember what a tremendous record he had over here in the States, and here he is doing a brilliant job out there showing what a great Grand Prix driver he is. Irvine's coming in. Remember, he was lying in 4th place, so this will be his final stop as well.
Well, Irvine in for 3 stops. So typical afternoon for the Ferrari team. And really, for Michael Schumacher, all went wrong this morning when he had that high speed off round at turn 11 and it punctured the chassis, so that was unserviceable. Michael Schumacher had to jump into the identical car, the spare car that Eddie Irvine is in, with virtually no running at all other than a couple of shakedown laps before the car started this Grand Prix, and that's led to all the Ferrari woes this afternoon. But this man, Damon Hill, 3rd in qualifying, completes 57 laps, goes on to lap 58, and there will be 19 laps remaining for the Brits. First glimpse he's had of race lead since all the way back at Suzuka 1996, when he dominated that Grand Prix and clinched the World Championship. Since then, it's been big black cloud hanging over Damon Hill and the Arrows Yamaha team. At one stage, Tom Walkinshaw of the British Grand Prix just felt so frustrated with Damon Hill's performances. Damon, of course, responded and made some comments this afternoon. We've given them to you already, but basically he's saying, I need a good car to give up my best. I have to say, he's got a great car here this afternoon, and clearly the world champion is giving his best.
Yes, he's out there, and he's been used to being in this position, obviously in the front, and as you said, he always drives best from the front. He's never that good when he's battling away in 3rd or 4th spot, but he's doing an outstanding job out there. But he has to remain so focused. It's been quite a while since he's been in this situation. It's something he relishes, obviously, but he mustn't let his mind wander at all. He has to be so immaculate the whole way, and as you can see, there's all that black rubber on the track, just lumps of rubber lying around it. They have to drive the cars as if they were on a scale X-string. Absolutely immaculate line. There it is. Just look at that rubber if they slip 6 inches out too wide. So that, again, the problem is there, of course, is they try to slip down inside somebody for overtaking. They're inclined to pick up all that rubbish, and that's what they don't need.
Well, that's always a problem here in Hungaroring, and with the very soft rubber that's being made available by the two tyre companies, Goodyear and Bridgestone, that's the downside. But Jack Villeneuve still in second place, David Coulthard still in third. While they battle away, we're going to take a brief moment.
Discover the amazing
To the Hungaroring, and here's a moment I've waited all year for, a battle between the Schumacher family. Michael in the red Ferrari F310, Ralf Schumacher in the 197 Jordan Peugeot. And I've asked both of them, what are you two guys going to do when you come into into competition on the circuit? I think contact was maybe implied, but not actually truly meant. But this battle between the young boys from Korpen, that's the part of Northeast Germany that they both were born in, is, I tell you, no less intense than if it was any other competitor here this afternoon.
The interesting thing too, of course, is that they're doing some pretty slow times compared to Damon Hill, but Michael has had just a torrid afternoon. That once the tyres start to go away, he just is history. Look at the way Ralph comes up on him turning into the corner, which is normally Michael's strongest point. And just behind them, in fact, is Nakano, who has the full attentions of Eddie Irvine, which goes to show that Michael is having a terrible time up there. The reason for it, everybody, of course, is that Michael did destroy his new car this morning. This chassis he's in now, sure, is his spare race car, but he wouldn't have done any setup with it this weekend at all. He would have been setting up the brand new chassis to get used to it. So therefore, he hasn't got any weight distribution, any balance done on this car, and he's just driving it basically as it came out of the box. And he's finding it really to his deficit right now.
Derek, a question for you. Michael Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella were in this precise situation some 20 laps ago. If Ralph gets alongside Michael going into turn one, is Michael going to be as hard on Ralph as he was on Fisichella?
I don't think he will be, no. I'm sure he won't be. I'm sure Michael is praying and hoping he doesn't, particularly after the last episode with Fisichella. But of course, see, Michael gets in there, takes quite a tight entry. He just has to do that. Remember, his car is sliding so much. If he turns in too late, he never actually gets into the corner. So consequently, you'll see Michael, with the present time, always turning in slightly earlier than he would normally do, because he needs every bit of that road to get grip. And he's got his brother all over the back of him. Look, Michael going in tight there to stop Ralph getting down inside him, but Ralph, I don't think, would have had a go at that point. And look at him come up under braking. You can just see where that Ferrari is suffering, and that's the turning in. Probably due to an understeer, and as we said before, they were wearing their left to rear tyres. Well, of course, that is the tyre that's doing all the work on this circuit, clockwise circuit, of course. But look at him, he's all over the back, right down inside him. He's going to go by in a minute, but of course Michael is going to lose very, very valuable World Championship points if he lets him through. And right behind him, there is Shinji Nakano, followed very closely by Eddie Irvine.
Well, a Grand Prix, it's a very long Grand Prix here in the Hungaroring, 77 laps, somewhere in the region of 1 hour and 45 minutes. Oh, Ralph gets it all squirrely. Coming into turn 11, that'll have cost him a second, maybe or so. But really, it's of little consequence, because the speed that Ralph in the Jordan can run at is clearly quicker than big brother Michael in the Ferrari. But getting the job done, getting past big brother, well, that's a separate issue. But look, Nakano now coming up in the background, and Eddie Irvine on his tail.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Eddie had to have a go at Michael as well. But I know that wouldn't happen in this particular case, because he knows that Michael needs every point he can possibly get. But certainly this thing with Ralph and Michael is an intriguing part of the race, and something, as you said, we have been looking forward to. Ralph has to be very careful, because he catches up with such speed as they enter the corner that then he has to back off, and I think that's where you saw him kick the tail out just now. And as we saw, there's all that rubber and debris on the outside of the corner, and of course you could so easily lose control.
Well, a momentary glimpse of Damon Hill, again just driving Sunday afternoon. I guarantee you, when we see Damon Hill out of the car, there'll be barely a bead of sweat on his forehead. He's had such an easy ride this afternoon, but don't take anything away from the effort. Nonetheless, it was a superb effort. It is a superb effort. Jacques Villeneuve now with David Coulthard. Well, that camera shot did incline to make them look closer than they are in reality. Not quite as close as the brothers Schumachers are. Ralph, he got it wrong here the previous lap. He's going to be a little bit more careful. The rubber on the outside is a real mouse trap. When you get caught in it, man, it is over.
Of course, course, Ralph is hoping to pick up the momentum through this corner leading onto the straight. Of course, if we ever see them come out onto the straight, there we are, there's Michael, there's Ralph behind, followed by Nakano, followed by Irvine. And of course, that is a very exciting place to be now. Irvine must be going, oh my goodness, Michael, what sort of problems have you got there? Remember, Eddie obviously had the chance to set his car up for the weekend. Oh, Michael had it on opposite lock as he came down through the hill there. He's having a torrid time with the car, and of course, as you can see, the others have totally caught up, and he's really just holding the group up. There's no way that Michael wants to give up his 5th place. There's a few points in it for him.
Well, this is really reminiscent of what we saw in the very opening laps when Michael Schumacher took the lead and Damon Hill swooped under Villeneuve and the rest to take that 2nd place. But of course, inevitably, Michael Schumacher had to concede to the pressure from Hill, and I don't know whether he's going to do the same to teammate or brother and teammate Irvine. Irvine down in 8th place, but 6th, 7th and 8th are all very tight. So this battle for 5th place continues. Don't go away, because this will be exciting in the remaining laps. Damon Hill leads. We're going to be back in a moment. Welcome back. This battle is no less intense than it was when we left you a moment ago for that short break. Michael Schumacher, the tail snaps out as he comes on to start-finish straight. Watch for Ralph to have a... No, he's not close enough, Derek.
No, he didn't, John. I think he thought he was going to get a good run down into that corner. He's got him now as they come down here under braking, as he turns into these long right-handers. We said it is great understeer inducing tight circuit, but Michael's got a bit of everything from what I've seen. He's been understeering and oversteering, and of course that's the last thing he needs. The last thing he needs is to... Oh, look at that. Irvine gets by Nakano. Nice move by Eddie. A very clever little move there. And of course Nakano's concentration was possibly off just for a split second, and allowed Irvine to go through. Now this is just what Michael needs. He needs Eddie coming up behind Ralph to worry brother Ralph. I know Michael wouldn't wish anything wrong to go wrong with Ralph, but I think right now he'd love to see Ralph disappear off sideways onto a nice bit of grass. But he's got Eddie Irvine there, who's going to be giving Ralph a hard time, and of course it's going to take Ralph's tensions a little bit off Michael. I think at least it would if it was me.
Eddie Irvine certainly got a racer's pass on Shinji Nakano, but brother Ralph trying as hard as he knows, and he is one tough little racer. If you ever watched him racing in Formula 3 in his formative days in Germany at some of the races that supported Grand Prix, he is also... Oh no, David Coulthard with problems. Is it retirement or is it just a driver error? Well, that looks to me as if it is terminal. David Coulthard rolls slowly off track. Man who had been in 3rd place, who had fought all afternoon with Jacques Villeneuve for 2nd. His afternoon's work is over. That and Jean's Verstappen in the Tyrrell, he retired a moment ago as well, so suddenly our retirement list. There is Coulthard down at turn 2. So DC, after all that work, what a disappointment for the McLaren Mercedes team at our crucial part of the season.
Yes, it certainly is. The interesting thing there, of course, John, is that you just suddenly saw Herbert got himself up to 3rd place. That's absolutely brilliant. Of course, it's given a little bit more hope for Michael Schumacher, brings him up to 4th with his brother all over the back of him, Eddie all over the back of him, the car over the back of him. But of course, you'll notice that because Eddie is on the back of little Ralph Schumacher, or young Ralph Schumacher, should I say, it's meant that he's actually allowing Michael at times to just get away, because if he gives Eddie an inch, he darn well knows that Eddie can go through at any given moment. And of course, that is going to be to Michael's advantage.
Well, excitement just seems to flow and flow. Johnny Herbert now in 3rd place. The prospect of Johnny Herbert in 3rd and Damon Hill in 1st. 2 British drivers on the podium. Yet again, how long is it since we've seen that situation? We had to go back probably to 95, maybe 96. Michael Schumacher comes out of turn 14 and dives across to the right of the track to prevent brother Ralph having any thoughts about making it. But now Ralph's got his mirrors full of the other bright red Ferrari, Eddie Irvine. A little interesting situation. Irvine drove for the Jordan team. Ralph Schumacher, the brother of Michael, a real sort of intimate little affair going on here for this battle for 4th, 5th and 6th.
Yes, it really is. I just wonder what Eddie Irvine's thinking right now. He needs a good result, I mean, for his own personal ego, because he's got the drive for the next year with Ferrari, a wonderful deal, and I don't blame him. I'd back down a little bit, I think, on the amount of money. But let's just ride with Eddie. But now we've lost the ride with Eddie. Nevertheless, it's good to see him right up the back there, and he's just thinking, how can I really worry this guy in front? He knows it's Michael's brother. He knows he doesn't want to create anything terribly untoward, but he wouldn't have loved to just be able to encourage him just to slide off to give Michael an easy run.
They've got the top 8 cars are all on the lead lap, but this battle is amazing, and you can hear the crowds all around the circuit. The majority of them have all come down from Germany, a lot from Austria. There are a few Finns here as well. There's a very strong language link-up between the Hungarians and the Finns. Don't ask me to explain it, there is. But now you can hear the crowds above the engine note. They're charging, they're cheering. They want a Schumacher, be it Ralph, be it Michael. Most of them are Michael fans. There's a few Ralph ones there as well. And this is a real shootout now as we get in to the closing laps of this year's Grand Prix in Hungary. This is the 12th time Formula One cars have appeared on the Hungaroring, a circuit that started almost, Derek, almost.
Eddie all over the back of Ralph. Ralph, of course, is just trying to get this gap so he can actually zip through. But I'll have a look at Michael. But Eddie is all over the back of him. And I'll be interesting to be a fly on the wall when Michael and Ralph get together after this and go on one of their little holidays together. And they actually relate that day that I followed you, brother. Because this must be the first time ever that these two have actually been nose to tail in a Grand Prix for a good position, certainly for a points position. Very, very interesting. To see just Eddie's dropping back a bit there. I don't know where his concentration goes sometimes, but he dropped right back into clutches in the Meccano. But it'd be intriguing just to see what there's going on in their minds. Jacques Villeneuve, meanwhile, he must be greatly relieved that David Coulthard's off his back, but of course he's over 30 seconds behind Damon. There's nothing he's going to be able to do about that at all, but he's going to get himself a nice second place, I'm sure, or I hope he does, and that'll close the gap up on Michael Schumacher.
Well, the flag marshals are going to get very busy this afternoon. Tarso Marquez is out on the track and he doesn't want to get in the way of any of this action. This is the focal point now of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Damon Hill has absolutely dominated it once he got past Michael Schumacher shortly after the start. The Arrows Yamaha with Bridgestone tyres and Damon Hill on board has been the absolute master of this afternoon. So as Michael Schumacher controls that 4th place from Brother in 5th and Urban in 6th, we're going to take a quick break to come back for the final laps. Welcome back to the Hungaroring with 7 laps remaining. Michael clips the cone. His brother Ralph. And Derek, we've seen a bit of a seesaw between Michael and Ralph during this lap. Some problem, do you think, for Ralph, or is it just catching his breath?
Well, I don't know. It could well be, of course, that he has been stirring Michael up so much he might have also upset his tyres. Remember, he's on the harder tyre compound. It could be that they're not working perhaps quite so well. He has to give them a breather to come back to cool down a bit. Eddie Irvine at the same time, he dropped back just now. It makes you wonder maybe he had a bit of overheating in the car. It is possible. Tons of rubber comes up on this circuit, gets in the radiators, and of course can slow down the airflow, which of course increases the temperature. Look at Ralph sliding out very wide as he went through there. So of course Eddie Irvine could capitalize a little bit on it, but of course Eddie's possibly getting the same problem as well. Plus there is that turbulence, that understeer problem that he gets through the corner, so he can't get as close as he'd like to.
And just looking at Ralph again, under braking into turn 1. The car looked to be a little bit loose in the back, and Eddie Irvine right, so goes the long way. He did that with Jarno Trulli. Will he do it again? Damon Hill comes across the line for the 72nd time. So did Irvine? He did. Eddie Irvine? No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
I'm getting all excited there.
The old eyes are going, what he?
And he did the same thing. He tried the same thing with Ralph that he tried with Meccano. Got away with it with Meccano. Little Ralph said, sorry, Eddie, not today.
No, I don't think Ralph was looking for it quite then either. It's the last thing you'd expect, because he wouldn't have seen the move that Eddie made on Meccano before, because he was too busy with Michael in front of him. But it certainly would have woken him up. Might have sharpened him up a bit, actually.
Jacques Villeneuve on his own now for a number of laps since David Coulthard retired with electrical problems. And of course, these cars are so dependent on the power from the alternator. In fact, Coulthard had an alternator fail this morning. They changed the engine, put a new one in. I just wonder, is this a problem that's maybe just not just a one-off?
You know, Michael went off in quite a big way this morning, and he damaged the car sufficiently they couldn't repair it for the race. You can't keep going off the road and having incidents without a little bit of personal damage. It makes you wonder whether maybe he's suffering a bit, maybe his back has been jarred. I mean, they do say you get jarred a heck of a lot in these cars. Maybe when he went off and damaged the car to that degree, he could have bruised himself a little bit, and that could be a little bit detracting for your performance during the race as well. All these things added together don't add to great performance. Let's just ride with Ralph.
And just look at the rev counter, up to 15,500 revs on Ralph Schumacher's Peugeot V10 engine. is this engine capable of revving maybe nearly to 17,000? Tarsha Marquez, 10 seconds penalty for blocking. So let's listen to Ralph round the back of the circuit. If I hadn't been talking over it, we would have heard it. But that's the way it is sometimes. You can't control the pictures. They're coming from the Hungarian television broadcaster. 5 laps remaining. So we're just going to take a very, very quick break indeed to see whether there is any change for 4th, 5th, 6th places. Schumacher and Irvine. Welcome back. And I'm almost breathless as we have a Jacques Villeneuve all on his own for some time now after David Coulthard's sad retirement with electrical problems. But back to the battle that's been raging for the last 15 laps or so. Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, Shinji Nakano. But of course Nakano won that Bridgestone tire. Johnny Herbert, superb drive. Again, a lonely drive this afternoon, but there is the battle for that 4th place. So Herbert consolidating, he's going to be in the podium. Michael Schumacher, if he finishes 4th, that'll give him 3 points. If Villeneuve finishes in 2nd place, that gives him 6 points. So the gap will reduce to less than 1 race victory. And that's very good for the championship, Derek.
Yes, it certainly is at this stage of the game. The race is hotting up, I think. Well, in fact, it's been hot the whole way through. People say Formula One's boring. I think it's been the most exciting race all the way through. The dice is all through the field, and I know they're not overtaking it much, but my goodness, you actually watch it technically and just see how close these guys are, the limits to which they're driving and the conditions. You know, driving, as I said, like on a scale-electric track across these curbs. And the fact that Schumacher up there is having a torrid time trying to keep that car under control. He's got his brother all over the back of him, Eddie Irvine behind the Nakano, and of course they're not making up much on Johnny Herbert either. Johnny's very happy there, so's Villeneuve, but Damon Hill 35 seconds in lead of Villeneuve at this point. A piece of cake for him, as long as the old beauty keeps going.
Oh, they're looking there, still that battle. We get momentary glimpses of Villeneuve in 2nd, a momentary glimpse also of Damon Hill leading this race, but all the focus is on this magnificent battle there. Johnny Herbert, you see again, look at the rubber, Derek, on the track. Enormous amount of rubber has been shed off the 22 cars that started. We're down to some 13 runners now, some 9 retirements, the last of which was David Coulthard with that electronics problem. 33.9 seconds.
Ooh.
Well, that's just a back marker. He's going to stay well and truly. I think it might be Tarsha Marquez, difficult to tell, but no one wants to get in the way of this great run that we're seeing down to the checkered flag for that final 4th place. Looks like Michael Schumacher's got the job done. I don't think Ralph will take the chance. It means a lot to finish in 4th place. Damon Hill comes across the line, goes on to the penultimate lap, lap 76, race leader. We haven't seen much of Damon Hill in this segment of the race. He's been out front driving a Grand Prix, I would say the Grand Prix of his life. We've seen him win in great cars. Now we're seeing him win in what is fundamentally a very average car, but on the day has been brilliant.
Absolutely outstanding. As we say, he's still got 2 laps to go, but I saw a sign there just now, all the Bridgestone, all the way across it. You've got to give them their due, boy. They have built some wonderful tyres for this race, and that is the main reason Damon's up front, apart from his undoubted skill and talent, is the fact that he's on those wonderful Bridgestone tyres. Look at it, it's not actually sliding at all, it's not understeering at all, but Hill has a 37-second lead this time, but we understand he actually has a throttle problem. He can't be slowing down. He's actually slowing down. He's got to keep it going for another lap and a half, surely. Throttle problem, you know, it's all electronic these days, but he's just got to keep that car. It'd be cruel to be robbed of victory now.
Well, he's got a 33-second lead, and oh, well, that's one of the Prosts. But Damon Hill in problems for the potentiometer on the throttle. These are all fly-by-wire engines. No mechanical linkage between the throttle pedal and the engine. So, Arno Trulli, that is, goes past Damon Hill. So coming up to the end of lap 76, we're about to begin the last lap. Damon Hill must be praying that the gods do love him and he can make his way round to finish this lap.
He's actually moving the car around from side to side as if he's trying to get more fuel pickup. And there he goes. It looks like he just picked up some fuel and off he goes. But I don't know. He's moving the car from side to side to bring it back under control. I think he got the fuel back, or he got back what he wanted, and he's on a move again, John. He might have lost 10 seconds, but he had another 20 seconds in hand.
Well, Derek, he's got 24. Oh, no! Damon Hill is really struggling out of turn 2, down the hill. Oh, no, Damon, what are you doing? Use your mirrors. That is not very... Is that back, Jack Villeneuve? Villeneuve has taken the lead on the final lap. I can't believe it. We were talking about a magnificent day for Damon Hill, for Tom Walkinshaw, for the Arrows Grand Prix team, for Yamaha, for Bridgestone. Damon Hill dominated this Grand Prix, and Jacques Villeneuve has nipped by on the final lap of this Grand Prix. He's going to take a victory, back-to-back victories for the Canadian. He won here last year. And the tragedy, I mean, there's going to be a nation in mourning back in the UK tomorrow morning. Damon Hill's masterful drive has been for nothing. A problem, whether it's fuel or whether it's throttle related, that isn't entirely clear. But the reigning world champion has lost the lead to this man. Jacques Villeneuve comes out of the penultimate corner into turn 14. He is going to win. It'll be the 9th Grand Prix career win for the Canadian. And this runs down the Michael Schumacher championship lead to even smaller points. Michael Schumacher will maybe get 3rd place. We don't know where Damon Hill is. Johnny Herbert on course for 2nd place. We think, again, we haven't seen Damon Hill. Has he stopped on track? We believe he has. It looks like Johnny Herbert has got 2nd place, and it should be Michael Schumacher, we believe. Michael Schumacher or Eddie Irvine. Is it Eddie Irvine?
No, it's Eddie. It's Eddie.
Eddie Irvine. There, Michael Schumacher takes 3rd place. Ralph tries to do it, gets into 4th.
Where's Damon? We just haven't seen Damon go over the line. That is tragic. Look at them waving to each other.
Like Mike, I think Ralph's trying to take him off the road.
Oh, but where's it? I mean, poor old Damon. That is just cruel. It's just so cruel to see him lose a victory, a historic victory for the whole team, for Arrows, for Bridgestone more than anybody. Damon's won before, but for Bridgestone, it'd be absolutely unbelievable for them to pull this one off, and they haven't done it on the last lap.
Well, I tell you what, we have seen drama of a level I can't remember in all my time as commentating a Grand Prix. Damon Hill has lost this Grand Prix. Join us back in a moment, we'll bring you an update. Hungaroring, Jacques Villeneuve is your winner this afternoon. He crosses the line, but Derek, the gods do love Damon Hill after all. He did finish in 2nd place. We never saw him cross the line. We saw Villeneuve, we saw Johnny Herbert, but there, in fact, was Damon Hill coming across the line in 2nd place. We didn't see that. That piece of action wasn't, to my knowledge, live to us. We saw Johnny Herbert come across the line, but it is Damon Hill in 2nd place. Jacques Villeneuve wins, takes 10 points, back-to-back victory, 9 Grand Prix career wins. And what does that do to the World Championship? Well, it certainly makes a difference of about 3 points between Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher. Schumacher still wins. Eddie Irvine, disappointment for the Ulsterman, did a superb job for Ferrari, and he finishes all the way down in 8th place. Damon Hill, clearly the hero of the day. Jacques Villeneuve, teammates, they're saying, well, I didn't win today, you did. The trouble is the record books will show Villeneuve first, Damon Hill 2nd, and the whole United Kingdom is going to go completely ballistic. The world champion never looking like a podium finisher in any Grand Prix this year. Johnny Herbert in 3rd place, and potentially a teammate for Damon Hill in 1998. Look at the championship points: 56 to Schumacher, 53 to Villeneuve. Alesi stays down in 3rd and 22. Berger on 20. Terrible day for Benetton. Frentzen in 5th and Irvine 6th. Both of those didn't finish. Well, I cannot wait to hear these 3 guys when they get into the interview rooms to see what Jacques Villeneuve says. They're clearly delighted with his good fortune this afternoon. He knows that he couldn't do any more than 2nd place, but fate played its hand. It gave him the opportunity on that final lap. Damon Hill in problems, be it fuel, be it problem with the throttle. Well, Damon will no doubt tell us when we get into the press conference. There are the manufacturers' points: 74 to Ferrari, 2 ahead of Williams on 72, Benetton on 46, McLaren 28, and there are the rest. Jacques Villeneuve walks now up to the podium. The drivers, of course, they have to go in and be scrutineered, their weight, and that's added to the total weight of the car. And if the sums work out, you pass scrutineering. Jacques still with that bleached peroxide blonde hair. And there we are. There are the results. Jacques Villeneuve first, Damon Hill second, Johnny Herbert third. Those are the podium finishers. Michael and Ralph Schumacher fourth and fifth. Shinji Nakano gets that one vital point for the Prost team. Trulli sixth, Berger seventh, Irvine eighth, Katayama ninth, Alesi 11th, Tasha Marquez in 12th place. Bad day for Benetton. Nicasalo disappointing in 13th place, and that's just probably one of the worst days Nicasalo's enjoyed. But listen to the crowd for Jacques Villeneuve, but really the roar is for the current world champion Damon Hill, who will take his place alongside Jacques Villeneuve on the second place. Dick Stanford there, the Williams team manager, congratulates his former world champion. Scenes as the hundreds of thousands of fans that make their way to the Hungaroring every year. They pile across the circuit. All the teams now try to get the garage doors shut as quickly as possible. Formula One is not user-friendly, but let's hear the story of this year's Hungarian Grand Prix.
That win today, it must have been very unexpected.
Well, it was after the first pit stop. The start was pretty bad. I don't know if I had wheel spin or the clutch slip, but I didn't go anywhere. And then the beginning of the race was just following the others and taking it easy, and that was good because I kept my tires in good shape, and everybody else in front of me blistered. So then I managed to get behind Damon, but Damon was really flying. I could keep up with him on the first set of tires, but as soon as I went to the other tires, I did a few slow laps to make sure the tires would hold on pretty well, and they blistered, and Damon just disappeared. So he was really flying. But at the same time, I thought, you know, there's no way he can finish. I was feeling pretty good, but towards the end of the race, it was looking pretty grim because he was actually going on and on and on until 2 laps from the end, where my pit crew told me that he was slowing down. So I started pushing again, and when I got towards him, he was going left and right. So I thought he had a broken suspension, but I knew he was going to block me. It was normal on the last lap, so I just went in the grass, and the car was pretty good in the grass.
Were you at all worried after Heinz Harald dropped out? Did you worry about your own car?
No, I'm not sure why he dropped out. I didn't know, but it's a shame because we didn't have the same tires, and he wasn't going to have problems with tires, so I'm sure he would have had a good fight with Damon if he had stayed in the race.
Jack, well done. Well, Damon, it's taken 11 races for you almost to win today. It must have been absolutely gutting, that last couple of laps.
Well, I was getting to the point where I thought I could count on, winning the race, but whenever you think things like that, something crops up, and I had a hydraulic pump problem, which meant that I couldn't use the throttle started to work intermittently, and I couldn't change gear. So that was really, I needed 40 seconds really, not 30 seconds on Jack.
You made a good start, and then you took Michael Schumacher without much of a problem. Can you talk us through those first sort of 20 laps or so?
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of laps he was pulling away, and then I managed to close in on him quite easily, and you could see that his tyres were blistering. And so I knew that was going to be a problem for him. But I also knew I had to get past him because I knew I could go quicker and there were cars coming up behind. So once I got clear, I overtook him in the first corner. Once I got some clear track, I was able to maximise and optimise everything we had, and it went perfectly. The race went really well. I'm very, very pleased for the team and for Bridgestone. They did a good job here at Hungary, and obviously slightly disappointed that we didn't manage to win it.
Now, your best position so far this year has been 6th. Is there one factor that you can pinpoint this weekend that has made you so much more competitive?
Well, there's not one particular thing really, but we've made little improvements everywhere. But I was able to use my experience here and work well with the team to get the good set up for the race.
Damon, well done. Well, Johnny, we haven't seen you in the top 3 since Monaco '96, so a great result for you this afternoon.
Yeah, no, I think it's good for the team because we've had a couple of opportunities of probably getting a podium finish earlier in the year, and I think it's very good for morale within the team.
This is the start of the Grand Prix some hour and 45 minutes ago. Michael Schumacher leads. Damon Hill gets a great start. A little bit of action down there, one of the Minardi's. And that looks like Pedro Diniz, in fact, that clash. We couldn't see it clearly at the time. Damon Hill took the lead from Michael Schumacher. And from this point on, this man was in control of this year's 12th Hungarian Grand Prix. But it wasn't this man that came across the line. It was Jacques Villeneuve. Heinz-Harald Frentzen also led at one point. He had a problem with the refueling mechanism. There we see another hard play. Derek Bell, talk about this just quickly before we...
Well, I just think it was very, very sad for Fisichella. He's doing a heck of a good job, but I think it was a great race and a great result for Jacques Villeneuve. What can you say? But a great race for Damon.
Well, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be in Spa-Francorchamps. So this is John Watson thanking you very much for watching a great Grand Prix. For Derek Bell and Jonathan Green, see you soon. This has been a presentation of ESPN, worldwide leader in sports.